Some people find radio, but for others, radio finds them.
He said, "You've got a great voice on the phone."
And one magic night, the stars aligned.
"Our jock's not going to be able to do mid-dawn. Do you want to come back and do it?" I'm like, this is my break.
Kerryn Marlow had to battle 1980s radio sexism.
He said to me, "Oh, we've already got a lady here."
But she fought it and she beat it.
Apparently, I was the first female announcer there in 20 years.
And found her path to a major on-air market.
I found my niche. I love doing talkback.
But after finding out about her sacking on her own show,
Basically gave them the finger.
Kerryn reinvented herself.
I did a course at Monash University that taught me how to write HTML code, something I still use today.
Along with some skills that she picked up in radio.
I tend to perform pretty well under stress, so that was definitely radio that taught me that.
May your best years be ahead of you. I'm Andy Marr, and this is Off Mic, Life After Radio. Kerryn Marlow is a business owner based in Melbourne, Australia. In her radio days, she was on air in music and talk formats, as well as being a producer and program director. These days, she owns and runs a marketing company and an online SMS platform. Now, this podcast in general is about the valuable skills that radio people pick up in the industry. But Kerryn's story isn't the first one we've had that highlights the importance of continuing to learn new things. We'll discuss all of this, plus the importance of radio in emergencies, and a couple of very juicy firing stories. Kerryn Marlow, thanks for coming on the podcast. Great to see you.
Andrew Marr, good to see you too.
It's been a long time since we first worked together. In 1998. You know that it's old when you start the year with a 19 rather than 20.
Glad you remember the date.
Well,
or the year.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. That was Deniliquin. You were the program director, and you hired a plucky young upstart who needed a break. And thanks for that.
Oh, that's okay. You're more than welcome. And turned out well.
Well, I'd like to think it did. We both did all right in the media for a while. And then you've taken a step, you took several steps away since you moved out of the media. And you're doing some interesting stuff now. But let's go back to the start and the beginning of your radio career. What got you firstly interested in radio?
If I have to really think about it, in my early days, I shared this dumpy house with a couple of girlfriends, and I used to play DJ, like Born to Be Alive or whatever, on my Pi 3-in-1 stereo, which I love. Yeah. Maybe a bit of, might have been a spark there. My father was a mad radio guy. I think he was a frustrated DJ. Mm-hmm. But I worked at Yellow Pages for a little while, but I called up a potential client and he said, "You've got a great voice on the phone." I think that was a spark, and I thought, I'm not going to stay here forever, so why not give radio a crack? And I booked into Gary Mack's radio school, Melbourne Radio School.
Oh, yeah?
I think the course was about 12 weeks, and there wasn't a lot of prac, but it was good. it eventually got me a job, I guess.
So where was your first station?
It was the 3AW Beach and Bay reports, but that was just sort of a morning thing, which was a bit of fun. And 3GL, just doing some music research in Geelong.
Were these paid gigs?
Yes, they were.
All right.
Yeah. 3GL was good because I worked in Melbourne, so I drove to Geelong every night, during the week, which in my 75 gold Gemini with the missing petrol cap, that was a big journey for every night. I don't know how I afforded that. But because I hung around at night, I could go into the studio with the night jock and just hang around and watch what he was doing, and he'd let me get on the panel. And my first real break was I got all the way back home from 3GL, and I got a phone call from the program director, who was Phil Darkin. "Our jock's not going to be able to do mid-dawn. Do you want to come back and do it?" I'm like, this is my break.
Yeah.
This is what So I jumped straight into the Gemini and went all the way back there. Didn't even think about sleep or where I was going to sleep after it. Had no idea what I was doing. But thankfully, I'd done some panel work. And on air that night was Craig Meddings, and I'm pretty sure Craig still works in radio. Like on the male deep voiceover Richter scale, he was about 9 spheroids for his age, he was this big, hello. He sat in with me for probably a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. And I remember the song When a Tree Falls in the Forest. which I think went for like 5.5 minutes.
Bruce Cockburn, yeah, long song.
Yeah, and it was on single back then, so I've queued up the single and I called him and I said, Craig, I need to go to the toilet. He said, that's a 5.5 minute song. I said, no, can you please come back? And he did.
So did that translate to full-time work at 3GL?
No, it was just part-time work at night. And then I got a call because, you send out a bazillion cassettes.
Oh, yeah.
And especially being a woman too, when I was sending out the thousands of cassettes, I clearly remember how hard it was getting into radio being a woman. And I remember the program director I think he was at 3BA at that stage. I can't remember his name, but he said to me, oh, we've already got a lady here. I know. And I said to him, but you've got guys there as well.
Yeah.
That to me was just bizarre.
Yeah.
Because there was that old myth that, no, women are too shrill for radio and people just don't like listening to women. Like, where's the research for that? There is none. And plus, women weren't on radio hardly anyway. So show me the money, show me the research. And I got a call from the program director at 2PK and they had 2 jobs going.
2PK being in Parks in New South Wales. Yeah.
Yes, the home of the telescope, the dish. The reason why there were 2 jobs going, there was actually 1 job originally.
What happened?
Well, they had this automation system there, probably one of the earliest automation systems. And I know you interviewed Jeff Fisher, who's an old friend of mine, and Jeff worked there as well. So Jeff, you'll remember this very well.
Yeah.
So it's just hours of music recorded onto these video cassettes.
Yeah.
And there was the bottom one that was for voice. So we used to have to go in and do voice tracks and you pulse it and all that, and it all worked.
I remember when I first started at 104.7 in Canberra, they would put an entire show and just replay the entire show on a tape. So they're doing bits and pieces on tape.
Yeah, we had a music log and had to...
And it all syncs up.
Yeah, do voice bits and then pulse it.
Yeah.
Like stop and start pulses, which of course would kick off all the tapes. Now, the reason why the 2 jobs came up is because what the jocks, and I don't even know what their names are. One of them recorded some salacious acts that he did with somebody in town, and that all went to air.
Oh.
Because the other jock, the second jock who got fired, pushed the tape in and didn't cue it up to the stop pulse. The whole thing went to air, so they were both fired. The rumour was that the program director had that tape in his safe.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's heard it, but there was a lot of money offered to hear that tape. If you ever interview Neil Maney, Neil, where's the tape?
Give us the tape, Neil. We need content.
I probably learned the most there, actually, because it was all new. But we had a mini tornado that went through the town. So we had to get on air and go out and report. There was also some floods, and Parkes doesn't have a river through it, but Forbes has the Lachlan River. So Forbes was really badly affected. So we had to get on air. It was like, I think every half hour or every hour, and just read out flood levels because they were waiting for the peak to come down. That was just, wow, that you just had to get on and do it. You didn't have to worry about how do I sound, or you just did it. And I don't think it was the floods night, but it might have been the tornado because it took out the transmitter, I think, or one transmitter, and there was a flat at the transmitter hut where jocks used to live. And so there was this one room, I think it had 1 turntable, 1 cart machine, 1 microphone. We were all there. I think from memory, Jeff might have been on the turntable. Eric Foote might have been playing the carts, and we're all reading out weather updates and everything, taking turns. And I mean, it was a horrible situation for the townsfolk, but for us, it was the most exciting thing we'd ever done. It was like, what are we doing? It sort of highlighted how much of a service that radio could be, whereas with, a TV crew, it's probably a bit different now with phones, but radio, you're there. You could just get on the phone, you're broadcasting to thousands of people.
Yeah.
Apparently, I was the first female announcer there in 20 years.
Wow.
I've never fact-checked that, but my program director, Neil, told me kind of reluctantly that, we're getting a lot of complaints about you because women are ringing saying, I hate her on there. And it was probably 2 people, I don't know, but that was really unfortunate. That hurt, actually. Yeah, anyway, you get that.
Yeah. And so after Parks, where was the next gig for you?
The next gig from there was 2WG, which was a big move for me.
Wagga Wagga.
Yeah, I was the night jock there, so I did 6 till midnight. That was pretty good. It was a really nice radio station. It was very well set out. I worked with some good people there. John O'Callaghan, whose father was quite famous in Sydney, of course.
Gary, yeah.
John was great. He was doing the breakfast shift. I think he's still in radio. And they had a full-time tech, so things worked.
Yeah.
And, it was a good panel and nice studios where you could see through to the other studio. Yeah, it was good. It was a good time there.
And so after what is now Triple M in Wagga, it was 2WG. What was next for you after that?
Then I went to 2HD Newcastle.
Okay. Yep. Newey. Moving into the larger markets now.
Yes. I was sort of a progression.
Yeah. What was your role there?
I was a producer for a program because it was a talk station, but I also did mid-dawns on weekends. So I got ripped off badly. I know. You're thinking Monday to Friday producer, so I'd work till 6 p.m. and then I'd have to, because I did Saturday mid-dawn, that meant going in at 11:30 Friday night.
After having already done an 8-hour day? Yikers. Okay. How did that work out?
Not good. I think that's probably why I have migraines, because I don't even think they thought about it.
Yeah. How long did you last there?
I think it was over a year.
Where next for you after Newey?
I came back home for a little while.
Home is?
Back to Melbourne. I had a friend who had a recording studio and I set up doing some teaching. So I set up a little school. I got a panel, an old oven panel, from one of the old dial ones.
Oh, the old black light pots, yeah.
Yes.
So how long did you do that?
Yeah, that was a sort of on and off for a few years. And I also taught at Hits FM. So that was the aspirant broadcaster. And I know you've interviewed Alex Dalrymple, who was involved with Hits or Wild in Sydney.
It started off as Hits and then,
It did. So, I went up to Sydney for the launch of that. But I brought my discipline to them. And, there was some good students there. There was like Corey Layton. And Corey's gone on to do great things. He was in one of my classes.
Corey, of course, is now, I think, head of podcasting or some similar job title like that for Australian Radio Network or iHeart. Who else in the cohort did you have?
Vicky Christo, and if anyone ever dealt with
Vicky,
MCM, which is a job that I actually worked at MCM for a little while after, I think it was after I started teaching at Hits, and she was my student, but then I needed a personal assistant at MCM.
Yeah.
So I brought her in and she went on to do great things, like, exceeded what I ever did there.
And now she's over at Channel 9.
Yeah, she's done, I love Vicky. She's done so well.
She is a weapon. So what were you doing at MCM?
I was the station relations manager. So I was responsible for all the regional radio stations. So I got to talk to my old, people that I'd phoned up as, trying to look for a job. They're like, oh, you're at MCM. The dream job.
Nice.
One of the best jobs I've ever had.
What happened after that?
I actually got poached. I went back to regional radio. I went to Colac.
And I think one of our former guests on this podcast, Matt Whittemore, was working over there at the time.
I gave Matt his job. Hello, Matt. And he was extremely talented. I even knew he had talent. I'd heard the tape and had a chat with him. I thought, how come this guy hasn't been snapped up yet?
It was very natural.
Oh, very much. I got him on breakfast as quickly as I could. I did see the interview that you did with him, and what he's doing now is a good progression.
A short visit to Colac, and then you pointed the Gemini in directions.
I was offered a job at 2QN, Deniliquin.
Ah, that's where you and I crossed paths for the first time.
That's where we met, yes. Yeah, I was the PD there, and I didn't do a full-time shift there because they already had, I'm pretty sure everyone was already there. So I filled in, of course. Yeah,
I remember hearing you on air there and I thought you were great, and it would have been great to have gotten you on a regular shift there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I got bored with being on air full-time, like just being a music jock. But to fill in, I thought, oh, this is a bit of a novelty. And I actually really liked it. I just remember, and you'd remember this too, we had the two separate studios, and I think the FM studio had better equipment. But the AM studio had this awful software I remember that
they
you
both
couldn't.
had. Yeah, sorry, go on. I think I know the software you're talking about. I'll
You had to
just
sit
be
there
over
and-
here shivering while you describe it.
It was. I don't know who designed it, but
That
apart
was
from that,
Sonifex.
was it Sonifex?
Yeah,
Yes.
which I think they made really good cart machines back in the
machines,
day, and then they tried to pivot into digital, but you couldn't change the next thing.
That's
you
right.
could change anything after the next thing, but if you had an ad going to air and you needed to change the next one, you needed to stop that ad and go to a sweeper because, particularly if you're paneling something like John Law's, it can change at the blink of an eye, like, 60 seconds, oh no, 30, 15, oh crap. And yeah, it would be a nightmare with that.
Yeah, gosh, I'd forgotten about that. The John Laws. Yeah, we had that at 3CS too. Yes, I used to panel that.
What prompted you to leave Denny?
I loved the people, all you guys there, and the newsreader, and the staff were great. Everyone was great, but the management would I just couldn't wait to get out of there. I was still teaching it on the side, but my next job was, after doing bits and pieces around, I landed a job at 3AK, which is now no longer.
That's SEN now in Melbourne.
Yeah.
That was the first of the SENs. It's becoming a network.
I think I'd sent them a tape and called them up, or a letter to say, I can run Wizard. I think that's what they liked about me. I could work the Wizard system. They offered me, a few shifts here and there, at night shift.
Yeah.
And a weekend shift. I think I did Saturdays and Sundays, but also panel operating Malgarvan, like 10 till midnight. And that organisation owned 3AK. Then I got 6 till midnight, so I got a full night shift then.
And that was a talk shift.
It was a talk shift, and I found my niche. I love doing talkback.
Yeah?
I organised all my own guests. I did all my own questions, everything. But one of the other jocks, who was also a sales rep, basically got a client to pay for his own shift. So he came back on, and I was turfed out. To do weekends. Yeah. But I ended up working with some wonderful people like the late John Blackman. I was his breakfast producer for a while, and how we remember him on TV, that's how he was, but a bit nicer. He was a great guy to work. I miss him.
Yeah.
And Greg Evans, we all know who Greg Evans is.
Greg Evans, perfect match.
One of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. And he used to make us breakfast. So thank you, Greg. But he was just a brilliant guy and so good on air. Like, he was just so natural. But I think we were the lowest rating radio station in history.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I got to Metro finally on the lowest rating. But and I've got the sheet to prove it, my shift rated the best.
Oh, so you were the best rating show on the lowest rating station?
I think it was about 1.2.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's some accolade.
Glad I haven't got an ego. But it was a great experience, though. I did love that. It was like doing talkback and talking to different people. That was great. I loved it.
Yeah, awesome. So what prompted you to leave there?
It got bought out by this new management. I think it was, I don't know, a bunch of lawyers or something, and they brought their own people on board. And the only way I found out that I'd lost my job was I heard a promo. I actually played my own promo on air to say, whoever the new announcer was, starting Monday from 6 till midnight on 3AK. And I'm like, but that's my shift.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
Right. So I actually phoned Mel Garvin at night.
Yeah.
And I said, what the hell's going on here? It was awful. Like that.
That's
Just
savage.
dodgy. In my opinion, they were just dodgy management. So I just said, basically gave them the finger. Just,
Yeah.
I'm out.
I can understand that.
Yeah, and I thought, where can I go from here? Have I had my run? The next logical step would have been maybe the ABC. I could apply there, but I thought, I've come to the end of my radio career. I need to do something else. I'm ready to move on.
All right, so Kerryn, we're back in Parks. You are in the little shed cum apartment for announcers just directly below the transmitter, which is the wildest thing I've ever heard. We've got some mad floods in Parks, and I need someone to get us to an ad break. What have you got?
2PK at 17 past 5. New song from Michael Bolton up next, and we'll cross to Jeff Fisher with an update on the river levels.
Still coming up with Kerryn Marlow on Off Mic, Life After Radio, where her next work came from, and why radio loses good people.
There's so many good people that have been lost to radio because a sales manager didn't like them, or they just got frustrated with the whole thing because they had an idiot PD.
What was the next step past radio?
I just did bits and pieces, casual work here and there. I think I got a job at an accounting firm. Also, in the interim, I did a course on HTML websites because that was starting to become a thing. And
Right.
I did a course at Monash University that taught me how to write HTML code, something I still use today. And it saved me thousands of dollars because I can always do my own websites and stuff.
Yeah.
The accounting firm, I met someone who wanted their website done and she gave me some money up front, and it kind of started from there. I thought, yeah, I'll do your website. And then I hit the phones. I picked up a couple of clients doing email marketing for like a Melbourne restaurant. So I sort of got into that web world, and then one client asked me if I could get a marketing list for email. And from there, I said, yeah, of course I can, not having any idea what they were talking about. But I got one and I became a list broker, so a data broker.
Buying and selling marketing lists to people.
Lists, yeah. Yeah, so I did that for a while. It was actually quite lucrative. And it kind of suited me because I'm a bit of a data geek. So there was that, and email marketing, I could build emails. And so those skills all helped there. And then I morphed into what I'm doing now, which is a very specialised niche market, which is to pharmacies. So my clients are pharmaceutical companies, and we market to or send out recalls and things like that to pharmacies. So that's very specialised.
That is super niche.
In the interim, during my list broking days, as I said, it did do well. So I bought an SMS company.
What's the SMS company do?
It's an SMS platform. So if you want to send out, don't forget your hairdresser's appointment tomorrow at 9, not that you'd need to worry about that, but reply and no, if you're not coming, that sort of thing, or got a grand sale at 12 o'clock Saturday, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So they upload their own data. I don't really have any marketing needs for that. Like, they do it themselves. Clients do it themselves. So
Yeah.
I've got the two businesses there.
Okay, and you're
those.
still running those two businesses in parallel to this day.
Yeah.
So what's a normal business day look like for you now?
SMS Express pretty much runs itself.
Yeah.
So, and I'm there for support, obviously, or if a client needs a hand, I'm here, of course. And I like that because I like troubleshooting. So it's, I can sort of offer support there, and I get clients from the pharmaceutical side of it, Media M Group. I get clients that, need a campaign. It's not full on every day, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
So I'm winding down into retirement.
Nice. What skills did you pick up in radio that are still applicable today?
The good skills in radio were being able to think quickly, because when you're live, as you know,
Yeah.
if the cart fails or, a record skips or something, and the CD skips, and, showing my radio age here, but you need to be able to jump on and get it, sorted out, or come on air and cover it or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and also I think multitasking is actually a bit of a myth, but you can do multiple things at once. It taught me to handle stress pretty well. I tend to perform pretty well under stress. So that was definitely radio that taught me that.
Yeah.
So if I've got a client that needs something urgent, I don't sort of go into panic mode. I can calmly deal with things a bit better, but I can have a few plates spinning, to use a LinkedIn term. That was definitely from radio, just that multitasking, dealing with stress, having a few things that I can deal with at once.
So what do you miss about radio?
I miss the spontaneity of it, being able to flick on and talk to people and just do a live interview. Even though it was nerve-wracking, you'd always get a bit nervous. But once you got through, I used to write everything out. I was very anal retentive like that. Once I got through my first big, this is what I'm doing tonight, I'm good. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
So, I miss that about it. You're probably going to ask me what I don't miss, and that's the really undeserving people that worked in radio that shouldn't have been there. But look, they needed to pay the rent, I suppose. I don't miss the egos and the silliness.
I think we've both seen people who would step over their mothers and actually do remember someone actually taking her mother's job. But yeah, some good people left radio a bit prematurely because they...
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many good people that have been lost to radio because a sales manager didn't like them, or they just got frustrated with the whole thing because they had an idiot PD. You know, having said that, I would find it very tough to recommend radio as a career now because it's so hard to get into. Back in the automation days at 2PK, that was a portent of things to come, I think. But look at it now with cloning people's voices and running a whole shift like that. I mean, that concept is not new.
No.
But it's, AI is getting pretty good.
A lot of ex-radio people still have radio dreams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
I tracked it to what triggers those dreams. And it's if I need to get something done and I haven't got it done or I'm running late, if I've got a big task for the morning that I probably should have set up tonight, for example, and I know that I'll have a radio dream, and I usually do. It usually is timing up to news, funnily enough. I can't remember which fader's the correct one. Is it that one or that one? And I usually push the wrong fader up and I get all the 2GB or whatever blurb there and I hit the news theme too late, or I've got a time up and I haven't got anything to say, or I've been shoved into a shift and I've got no music.
Oh, yeah, I've had that one.
But I had one the other night where I was in this huge studio and the reel-to-reels were up, like on a ledge. I'm talking ceiling level, right up on the ledge. And one of them, the tape had all sort of wound around, and I'm saying there were people everywhere, like, how do I fix that? How do I get up there? And there was dead air.
Oh, no.
That was freaky.
We should be wrapping up soon, but before we do, something that I started doing recently is the fortune cookie.
Ah, okay.
I picked up one of these at a restaurant. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to open this fortune cookie and I'll read you the fortune and you tell me whether that applies to radio and how it might apply. So here's the fortune cookie, and you will advance the careers of your friends in your climb to success. How would you say that might apply to you?
I guess, when I was teaching radio and it hits, and also my private students.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them I did get jobs in regional radio, and some of them actually, some of my private students got shifts at Hits as well, which was a great synergy there. So
nice. And
went on to do some really good things. So that probably applies to that.
Well, I shouldn't have eaten that fortune cookie. Kerryn Marlow, so good to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
That was Kerryn Marlow, a mentor of mine and a key inspiration for the creation of this podcast. Now, if you want to hear more about people from radio making it in marketing, you'll love the episode I did with Stephen Walter Gerard.
When a company says we need a plan to make some noise in the market and increase our share of voice, then you go, I'm your person, because I know how to write, present, host, edit, build, strategize, which is gold on the ceiling when it comes to marketing in any other arena outside of radio.
You can find that episode where you found this one. And if there's something about the transition away from radio into other careers that you don't think I've been covering adequately on this podcast, let me know. You can drop a comment in YouTube or you can get me on the socials. I'm on LinkedIn and the podcast is on Instagram, Facebook and Blue Sky. Just look up the podcast name, Off Mic, Life After Radio. I'm Andy Marr. May your best years be ahead of you.